thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Are you looking for lesson planning materials to kickstart the new term? We've got you covered. The Day is a global online resource that turns the news into lessons. We're offering listeners a free resource on Andrew Tate that you can find on thedaynews.co/Tate. Inspire personal development and critical thinking for your students by downloading the Tate Debate today and feel more confident addressing sensitive topics with your class. Visit thedaynews.co/Tate to find out more.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
In today's educational environment, students and teachers are juggling a mix of face-to-face, online and blended learning courses. Canvas by Instructure helps teachers navigate these diverse learning experiences with a user-friendly virtual learning environment that offers flexible access to courses and a consistent learning experience, all while streamlining everyday teaching processes. The world's best schools and universities are using Canvas to create dynamic courses, collaborate seamlessly, and access actionable data that drives student success.
Good morning and welcome to the Monday morning break with me, Marie. I'm really looking forward to speaking to Tanya this morning. So welcome, Tanya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat to you today.
Yeah, same. So, if we just get straight on with it. So you are newly appointed. Well, when we first started talking and met, you were a newly appointed deputy head teacher. So I'm guessing you've been in the role a little bit longer now than when we first started talking. But you were also a former head of faculty, and you've been an English teacher for almost 20 years. Incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. So really interested today just to talk about when we sort of met through WhatsApp, didn't we, and through Twitter, and we thought, well, I thought it would be a really interesting show to talk about sort of, I guess, your career, your progression, and perhaps some differences between the roles, and then finish up, I guess, with any advice for someone wanting to make a similar move. Anyone that's listening, if you've got anything that you want to, comment on the show, or, and at the end we'll give our details, or I'll give my details. If anyone wants to follow up with anything afterwards, that would be amazing. So, let's go for it. Can you sort of tell me about your career journey as it is so far, Tanya?
Yeah, so I started as an English teacher. My first role, straight out of training, straight away got a job at a secondary school, and I worked there for 7 years. Progressed within that role to second in department, looking after Key Stage 3 mostly. It was back in the days of APP, assessing pupils' progress, which was when we needed to replace the old grading system with something new. So I was at the forefront of that for Nottinghamshire, which was very exciting. I then moved on to another school as head of faculty. I was head of English for 2 years at another secondary school in Nottinghamshire, working really hard to sort of get outcomes improving each year that I was there. That was the primary goal, really, and sort of instilling that love of English as much as I could to the students that I was working with. And from then I progressed to the role I had most previously, which was assistant head teacher. I was an assistant head teacher for 10 years at my previous school. Roles and responsibilities kind of evolved over time, I think it would be fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
When I began, I was in charge of Key Stage 4 attainment. But then as time progressed, I ended up taking responsibility for quality assurance processes, staff absence, HR, personnel links between the school and the trust. And alongside that, I still taught English.
Wow.
Yeah, still working very closely with Year 11 in particular, the examination groups. And supporting staff as well. A lot of my role previously was around sort of staff well-being, absence management, and things like that. So 10 years of a very broad experience, I would say. And now in my current role, as you said, I'm now deputy head teacher at another smaller secondary school in Nottinghamshire.
Wow, you have certainly packed a lot into all of that, all of that time. And like you said, such a very, some of your roles have been extremely broad and covering lots of different sort of focus. I was really interested. One thing that I picked up on that you said that I just really, really loved was this instilling a love of English. Because listening to you talk, it seems like a lot of your roles have been focused on outcomes and I guess sort of data-driven performance, quality assurance, all of those words. But to hear you say that actually at the root of it all was just instilling a love of English in your pupils. Yeah, I love that.
One thing that I'm always conscious of, and I think as a senior leader, you can often lose sight of this because of all the other responsibilities on your shoulders. But I always say to staff, I always remind staff that fundamentally I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher of English. And that is what I do. That is what I need to do well to make sure that the students get the best they can from me. And yes, I do have lots of other responsibilities and I do them, as well. But I am a teacher of English. Yeah,
so important, and not just for the students, but I guess actually that links to supporting staff, doesn't it? You, as a member of SLT, you can support the staff effectively because you are still teaching as well. There's often a lot of discussion, isn't there, that great teachers and can sort of move up and move into more senior roles and leadership roles, but there is that risk of losing touch with the chalk face, the teaching.
So something that I've kind of learned from my head teacher now and my previous head teacher, both of them are in the classroom. Not as much as say I am, or certainly not as much as other staff, but they both maintain contact within the classroom because they also value that as being part of their role. To at the chalk face, as you say it, that allows them to have that kind of, they can relate more to staff and they can say, I'm asking you to do this because I also do this.
Yes.
It's that walking the walk and talking the talk, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, absolute role modelling as well, and really being able to have a very accurate view of things, the challenges. But I guess also, going back to that, instilling that love, that actual joy of teaching as well. That's why we all went into it, isn't it? No matter where you get to, there's that absolute love of being around the pupils and seeing those little sparks of engaging with your subject, whatever your subject matter is. And I just love English as well. Absolutely love English, love reading. And I'm always really interested when we're talking about roles like this, like we've said, yours is performance driven and outcomes and data, but sometimes again there's that worry, isn't there, that actually it kind of knocks the love of a subject, particularly I mean my feelings of it, particularly something like English, that reading for pleasure. And how you balance that as a teacher with, but actually we've got to develop these skills and you've got to study certain texts whilst maintaining hopefully a sort of love of English that's a lifelong thing to take with you in the future, isn't it? Staff welfare as well, just picking up on you're heavily involved in staff welfare, or have been. Again, that's huge, isn't it? A huge area. I mean, that is one of my absolute motivators as well. And actually, I've referred very briefly to it, but that is how we met, wasn't it? It's through lovely Chris McDonald, shout out on Twitter, had just a fantastic idea of setting up a WhatsApp group for people, and I think there's about 300, isn't there? I think on that group.
Lots of subgroups as well, and I must say, I can't remember all the names, but a massive thank you to the members of the DSL WhatsApp group, because I am fresh and new to the role of DSL, and the advice and the comments that are there are so supportive and just reassure me constantly that I may be new, but I will get there.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, right from the first, I remember sort of having a little laugh to myself, because the first evening certainly that I was joined on, and everyone was just sending pictures of their pets. It was incredible. It was so lovely. And like I said, that's how we met, and it has been a really lovely support, and people have felt able to kind of ask advice, and I don't know how much of that's because it is so big, and maybe there's an element of anonymous. I can't never say that word, anonymous. But people have felt very able to really ask and really be honest about how they're feeling, which I think, sometimes there's barriers to that in your own workplace, isn't there? Which that arguably there shouldn't be, but I think having a group of people. So anyone out there that's not on the group, or is thinking of joining a group like that, I highly recommend.
I totally echo that sentiment.
Shall we talk about? So we've sort of discussed a bit. You've talked a bit about what your roles have been leading up to this, and then what I'm interested in is kind of the move, and so what your role is now. And could you let us know a bit about that?
Yeah, so in September I started a new role as deputy head teacher and designated safeguarding lead. The school is actually part of the same trust as my previous school. So on the one hand, that's lovely because I knew a lot of the people I would be working with already. However, in interview setting, that did make me feel incredibly awkward at times. The fact that I know these people and I chat to them, this is now a different circumstance, and I have to remind myself that I'm actually, this is something very, very formal. So I was very happy to be successful and to start working here at my new school. I'm the only deputy head teacher. It's a small school. There's only 6 members of SLT. Oh, right. So I've gone from a school of 2,500 students with a matching staff body to a school of only 870. So everything is much smaller, and I think that in itself has been something that I've had to just get my head around. That there aren't as many people to ask or to what am I looking to say, to kind of give responsibilities to, if you like, because there aren't as many staff holders in terms of TLR holders. My key responsibilities at the moment, then obviously safeguarding, because I'm the DSL, attendance, student attendance. I also oversee curriculum and I line manage English and literacy, as well as overseeing cover, which is what I did in my previous role. So the fact that I've moved from that to doing it here hasn't been a massive adjustment really, because the processes are the same. It's just in another organisation. The biggest difference has been going from being a member of a safeguarding team to being the leader of that team. That's been the biggest difference, and in some ways the biggest challenge for me. I mean that is a very big role, isn't it? It's very big. But I'm DSL as well for my college, and it is a very different role. And I guess actually, so listening to kind of the different areas that you are covering, so I guess DSL and attendance, I guess they are quite interlinked, aren't they, in lots of ways, and actually probably combining them, and just thinking about the new sort of safeguarding
guidance on this, children missing from education. And there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, about attendance figures? But always, there's always a lot of talk about attendance figures. But I guess actually, sort of, there is a real follow through, isn't there, on that? And as DSL, you're able then, I guess, to pick up those very effectively that are at risk of low or persistent absence, even, or missing from education. Yeah.
There are lots of really good systems in place, and I've been able to work with the team to kind of streamline those processes and support them to especially with attendance. And already we're seeing that sort of paying dividends, because we're seeing improvements and we're seeing families engaging with us as well, maybe more so than they had previously, which obviously links in with safeguarding, because we need to know where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, I believe that's at the crux of it, isn't it? It's the family engagement and the identifying possible other avenues of support and working as a team. I mean, often children or young people with difficulties with attending can be for a whole host of reasons, not as simple as, well, I just don't want to go to school. So working with, having those really positive relationships with the whole family and parents, and often parents at their absolute wits' end and not knowing what else to do as well. So I believe as well that does really tie in, and as you said, pay dividends. That joining up, really interested then with all these different areas that you're covering, and like you said, also teaching, because that's so important to you. So are you able to talk about how a typical week is structured for you?
Well, I mean, as DSL, no 2 days are the same. And to say that the learning that I've achieved over the last 7 weeks, I feel like every day is I'm learning something new. From doing my very, very first MASH referral and basically saying to the person on the line, please be patient with me. I haven't done this before. And just having the support of so many people. This week in particular, and I think those of us who are in the safeguarding team will perhaps appreciate this a bit more, this week has been very, very busy. And I think that is possibly due to a 2-week holiday. We have a 2-week half term here in Nottinghamshire. Right. And then students coming back into school. And so this week has been particularly busy in terms of the safeguarding team and myself. We've, a lot of man hours have gone to that aspect of my role. A typical week for me is my timetable lessons. They have to take place, and they do take place. In terms of meetings, I have my line management meetings. I have my SLT meeting, which is after school on a Tuesday. But just for instance, yesterday I could not attend a meeting. I had to ask somebody else to lead that meeting because I was on the phone to an external agency dealing with a safeguarding incident. So typicality, I would say no 2 days are the same. Yeah. And in some ways that's really good. It's good to keep your knowledge and your professional development always increasing, and there's always something new to learn. At the same time, it can be very tiring because you don't always know if you can achieve that job you set aside for yourself to do, because you don't know what's going to come in the meantime.
So true. Also very interested in that, like you said, this week has been particularly hard, and that is something that me and my assistant head, who's also the DDSL, we've absolutely said the same, that the first day back minimum of a break, don't schedule anything. Don't schedule any meetings that could be another day, because we will be crisis management, safeguarding issues because of that, the students coming back in after the holiday. So it's really interesting to me to hear that you find the same thing. I think that's my advice to anyone listening who's going into a DSL or DDSL role. Don't put those meetings on that first couple of days back, because you may well.
I think I've learned that
now. And like you said, it's a juggle, isn't it? I think it's really important to know that you've got other members of the SLT that can pick up those meetings and lead those meetings, cover those lessons even if you're still in the classroom, because when there is a safeguarding thing, that has to take precedent over everything, doesn't it?
And I must say, my DDSL, she is phenomenal. I mean, she's been in post for a few years now, and her expertise is second to none. And I would always feel confident that if I couldn't immediately deal with something, she is more than capable. In fact, I've been sitting in on meetings that she's been having with external agencies, just so I can learn how those meetings, go, what our involvement as a school would be. And it's just been really, really good for me just to learn, and learning on the job as well, because I feel like, yes, I can do the reading and I've read all the guidance I need to read as a DSL, but being in it doesn't compare to reading about it. Absolutely.
No, totally agree. It's I think anything safeguarding is one of those jobs, like you said, you can know, and it's really important to know the theory and the legislation, obviously, but it is one of those jobs where you don't really know until you're in it. And then it is learning on the job, and it is seeking advice and support. I mean, first of all, absolutely love that you've got that support from your support and experience, I think, from your DDSL, because it is something that you need to share, I think. But obviously there are limitations to who you can share with. So having that relationship and that support. But also it was really nice to hear you saying when you did your first MASH referral, or working with external agencies, and I think just that being able to say, please be patient with me, or help me a little bit with this, because at the end of it, isn't it, it's the safety of a child. So I really believe there isn't room for criticism or judgment, but naturally, I think as well, I don't know if you agree, but I do think there is a worry, isn't there? There's a lot of worry and fear in that role. Am I doing the right thing? And
absolutely. And I've always said, even on interview, I was very, very open and honest about the fact that I am not the finished article, and there is a lot that I still need to learn, and I will never stop asking questions, because if it's important and I need to know it, I will ask whoever I need to get that knowledge, because it's so important. So if people do get a bit fed up of me pestering, they're just going to have to deal with it,
tough.
Because I'm asking.
I just love that. I love that phrase. I'm not the finished article, and I'm going to keep learning and keep asking. And wow, just to say, if that's the kind of ethos you pass on to your students, then they're very lucky, because I just I think that's amazing. And I think maybe there are too many people out there that worry that they should be presenting this very confident, assured, experienced person, and we don't all feel like that, do we? And actually the attitude of I am still learning. I don't think I've learned all I can learn on whatever the topic is. I just love that. And on that note, we'll take a short break, because we just go into the news, and then really looking forward to talking to you again afterwards, and we'll talk about kind of the differences between all of the roles that you've had.
Are you looking for lesson planning materials to kickstart the new term? We've got you covered. The Day is a global online resource that turns the news into lessons. We're offering listeners a free resource on Andrew Tate that you can find on thedaynews.co/Tate. Inspire personal development and critical thinking for your students by downloading the Tate Debate today, and feel more confident addressing sensitive topics with your class. Visit thedaynews.co/Tate to find out more.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishing professional development books and resources to support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Have you checked out their latest releases? Use the code JCTTR2324 for 20% off your order. Don't miss out. Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading.
In today's educational environment, students and teachers are juggling a mix of face-to-face, online and blended learning courses. Canvas by Instructure helps teachers navigate these diverse learning experiences with a user-friendly virtual learning environment that offers flexible access to courses and a consistent learning experience, all while streamlining everyday teaching processes. The world's best schools and universities are using Canvas to create dynamic courses, collaborate seamlessly, and access actionable data that drives student success.
So, welcome back, and we are going to resume talking about Tanya's roles and all the different things that she's done over her education career. But before the news, we were talking about kind of all the different things that you're covering now in your new role. And we started to sort of talk about some of the differences between the roles that you've noticed. One of them being the size of the school. So I think you said you've gone from 2,500 down to, was it 800?
About 870, I would
say. And with that, obviously your staff teams, there's a big difference between them. And I think, you were saying that's a bit of a realisation, because when you're talking about delegating things, there are just less people. And I was thinking, as you were saying that, I was thinking about that, because really the number of pupils, the processes are going to be the same. Although I guess the number of occurrences, or for example, if we take safeguarding, it will potentially be fewer with fewer children. But actually all the processes and all the work that you need to do remains the same. Yeah. So that must be a bit of an adjustment in terms of workload.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was thinking ahead to this question, I kind of decided I'd write down for myself notes on, what is good about going from a big school to a small school and what are challenges. And I think in terms of a smaller staff and student body, it does mean that I'm very quickly getting to know people.
That's lovely.
I do pride myself on remembering names. It's something that I've always felt is very important. Say the person's name makes them feel valued. Yeah. So I do feel that even after, say, my first 2 weeks here, I knew some names already, and I feel that because it's a smaller environment, that people see me more often. So that sense of visibility is always there because I'm always around, and students are already, some of them are already seeing me as their trusted adult, and that they will come to me because they know where I am, they know that I'm always available, and I will speak to them. So I think that's probably one of the best things about that smaller school environment, that sort of closer knit, if you like. The departments all fit on one corridor, they're all together. So that's something that does sort of forge a real sense of team. Everyone is so sort of close-knit. But as you said, the main challenges with that small team comes the challenge of workload and pressure. When things are difficult and you do need additional support, it is challenging to find where that support can come from, because I do still look after staff well-being, and I'm a mental health first aider. I'm always conscious of the fact that if I put onto them, that is not good for their well-being. Yes. So that is one of the challenges, particularly with staff absence. We're not in a position whereby we have a huge team of staff who we can deploy to cover other teachers. We just don't have that in this school. So that brings challenges. Bringing in supply teachers is not what you want as your default setting, really. You want staff who know the children, know the processes and the systems. But when the school is small, you haven't got that bank of people that you can go to, because again, that's their workload, it's their pressures, and that's probably the biggest challenge that I can see at the moment. But as I said, in terms of the good things, the teams are fantastic, and I haven't had to speak to anybody about the fact that we're asking you to do something. Everybody is very, very accommodating and very, very kind, and I think. And that's lovely, but I also am very mindful of not taking advantage of that kindness and that, accommodating attitude to help the school.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think that this is so interesting and very well planned. So whoever's, responsible for your, assigning the roles and dividing up, I mean, well done to them, because again, you are staff welfare, but you're also responsible for arranging cover, I think you said, so in case of staff absence. Yeah. So again, that alignment, I guess, and those crossovers, it means that it's all joining up, isn't it? So like you said, you in a smaller team, you are getting to know people better, and in terms of that leadership and management, it's so important, isn't it? That staff culture of knowing people, knowing their names, and just that little thing of remembering something, that they were going to do at the weekend, that sort of thing. And then when somebody is off, you're then in charge of arranging the cover, yet you're also very aware of staff welfare, which is all very, very good for your team. But I'm just wondering, that must be quite difficult for you.
It can depend. I mean, because I've done that in my previous role, I feel like I am kind of quite used to that. And the mental health first aid training was fantastic when I did the 3-day course, and about listening and supporting where you can. And I think even now, we're 8 weeks in now, school weeks, I think already staff here feel that they can come to speak to me, that they will get someone who will listen and support them in whatever way they can. My links with the trust are really, really strong. I've worked with our trust leads from HR for lots, for the last 4 or 5 years, So I think staff know that if they speak to me, something will get done. I think that's often what they feel.
Yeah, and how valuable that is. That's great.
As much as I can, I'm not a magician.
Well, no. That's something that I do often say when I put stuff out to the staff, and we've recently been doing some work on, what does your best day look like, and what does your worst day look like, and then what can I do to limit the risk of moving into this worst day scenario, and increase the chances of moving towards consistent best days. But I did say there is a small little caveat in that, is that I won't be able to do everything, and some things might not be immediate, because I mean, obviously it depends on the circumstances. But yeah, that's staff welfare, and having that focus, and them having the knowledge that you are going to get things done as much as you can. They are listened to and they are heard. Yeah. I think that's just so key.
And I think having really clear policies and processes is key to that. I think if someone does have to meet with me, and I'm talking about my old role more so because I haven't had to do that yet, it's so early on, but even those who have to meet with me because of absence management, and it is a more difficult conversation because it is all policy driven. It is that factual, it's impersonal, yeah. It is a process that we have to follow, but in a supportive way wherever we can. But I think staff appreciate the fact that we do work to a policy, and it is them black and white. No one is treated unfairly. It's very much equal to all staff. And at the end of the day, our priority is the children.
Yes,
exactly. And that's what we work. That's who we work for. Essentially, they're our boss.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Totally. But I was about to say exactly the same thing as you were talking about the importance of clear policy. I mean, it does depersonalise it, doesn't it? It's that one extra step in it, that it's not me saying this, just our policy is, the requirements are, and it does take the heat out of it a bit, doesn't it, when you're having those difficult conversations, when everything is very clear what the expectations are. Okay, so have you got anything that you've noticed other than what we've already sort of talked about, but that's been a real not what you expected moment?
The role of DSL, I think, is probably, I knew that there would be things that I would be involved in. I perhaps naively didn't realise quite what some of those things might be, and how when you sit back, not as a professional, but as a parent, I have a 7-year-old child, when you sit back and reflect on some of the things that you have dealt with as a DSL, it can be quite upsetting, I think is probably the word I would use, because these are young people, these are their lives, and And I knew that I would have to be part of some quite difficult things. And I perhaps didn't realise just how difficult some of these children's circumstances are. And that was quite hard to take in the first few weeks. And I think it will always be difficult, because we are humans, and we have emotions, and we have our own connections, and it will always be something that I will probably have to breathe through and think, wow, this is hard. But, you know, the bottom line is it's hard, but we will help.
I totally agree. I've been at DSL for 13 years. And yeah, it's really, really hard. And like you said, I'm a mum as well. And there are definitely days when I will go home and just hug my boys just that little bit tighter.
Absolutely.
And I think, not that I ever speak about it, but I think they know sometimes that actually they just need to suffer a very tight mum hug, because it's been one of those days. But yeah, I agree. And I would say I don't think it does necessarily get easier because we are human. And again, you're in the job because you care, and you can't switch that off. But I would say, over time, you can perhaps, support is essential. Emotional support is absolutely essential. But I think you can learn ways to maybe compartmentalise, have those routines. I know I've got a very strong one that when I pull up my car outside, park, just sit for a couple of minutes. And then as I step through the door, that's me. I'm putting that behind me as much as I can, and like you said, just holding on to the fact that you are helping, but that doesn't take away that sometimes the things that you hear are exceptionally difficult to hear, and move on from, I would say.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.